Are you ready to learn the truth about what was really hidden behind the glittering facades of the mansions of the Gilded Age? Lavish dinner parties always seemed to us to be the height of elegance. But behind this splendor lay the broken lives of women. Perfectly set tables became real battlefields for reputation, status, and a successful marriage. Every smile here was carefully rehearsed, and every careless move could lead to social ruin. Watch the video to the end, and you will learn how one wrong word spoken over dessert could forever deprive a young heiress of her right to happiness. What if I told you that the greatest secrets of high society were kept not in safes, but in the memories of ordinary footmen? During hours-long banquets, these silent figures in strict liveries lined the walls, blending in with the luxurious wallpaper. They saw every forced smile of the hostess and noticed every tear that a guest hastily wiped away with a batiste handkerchief. In their presence, aristocrats did not hesitate to show coldness towards their spouses or hidden animosity towards their rivals. It was the servants who became unwitting witnesses to how the golden cage slowly but surely destroyed the souls of the inhabitants of the mansions. For many young girls, their first appearance at such a dinner was the beginning of the end of their personal freedom. Their mothers carefully prepared them for this event, teaching them to hide any true emotions behind a polite mask. The servants noticed how the young debutante's hands trembled as they clumsily used the complicated silver cutlery. One wrong move could provoke a cold, condemning glance from older relatives, which meant complete failure. In these richly decorated halls, there was no place for sincerity, tenderness, or simple human sympathy. Luxurious dresses embroidered with pearls often served as a kind of armor for women, protecting them from a hostile world. However, this armor was incredibly heavy and uncomfortable, causing constant physical discomfort for long hours. Servants saw how, after the guests left, the ladies could barely stand on their feet from exhaustion and pain. Removing corsets and heavy dresses in the bedroom became a painful procedure, leaving red marks on the skin. But the next day, they were obliged to put on this armor again and faced new challenges. These invisible dramas unfolded in every luxurious mansion, hidden from prying eyes behind high fences. Only the silent servants knew the true price of this glittering but cold and cruel world. It would be very interesting to hear your point of view on these invisible observers. What do you think about the role of servants in such closed societies? Write about it in the comments. And be sure to subscribe to our channel to continue discovering the hidden pages of history. The secret that people pay thousands for lies in the simple arrangement of chairs at the dinner table. Seating guests was not just a matter of etiquette, but a complex mathematical problem that reflected the social hierarchy of the mansion. A mistake in seating even one person could lead to years of enmity between influential families. Women suffered particularly from this system, as their place depended solely on the status of their husbands or fathers. To find oneself at the far end of the table meant public recognition of one's own insignificance in the eyes of high society. The central seats were always reserved for the most honored and wealthy guests, whose presence brought honor to the entire house. It was here that the main social conversations took place, on which the fate of large fortunes and advantageous marriages depended. Women who found themselves in the spotlight were under enormous pressure to display impeccable manners and wit. One unfortunate remark could permanently ruin their reputation among the most influential people in the city. Therefore, many ladies memorized topics of conversation in advance to avoid awkward silences or embarrassing mistakes. The further away a guest sat from the hosts, the less important they were considered to be in this cruel hierarchy. For young girls from impoverished families, seats on the periphery of the table were a real sentence for their future. They were deprived of the opportunity to make useful acquaintances and attract the attention of wealthy suitors sitting in the center. The footmen noticed their downcast eyes and desperate attempts to maintain dignity in this humiliating situation. Wealth dictated its own rules, cruelly weeding out those who did not meet the gold standard of the era. The change of dishes took place strictly at the signal of the hostess, who controlled the process with barely noticeable gestures. This required constant concentration on her part, not allowing her to relax for a second throughout the evening. The dining room became an arena where only those who knew how to play by the cruel rules of high society could survive. Do you think it was fair to judge a person's worth solely by their place at the dinner table? Watch the video before the next chapter to find out how the ladies communicated with each other without uttering a single word. The hidden truth that everyone keeps quiet about is that the most important conversations took place in absolute silence. In a world where women were forbidden to openly express their feelings, they developed a unique language to convey their emotions. Everyday objects such as fans, gloves, and even cutlery became tools for secret communication. With their help, ladies could warn a friend of danger, express contempt for an enemy, or ask for help. Servants standing behind chairs eventually learned to brilliantly decipher these invisible messages, reading them like an open book. The fan was the main weapon in the arsenal of every socialite, capable of conveying the slightest nuances of mood. A quick and sharp wave meant extreme irritation that a lady could not express aloud. A slow, measured movement of the fan demonstrated cold indifference to the interlocutor or boredom with his monologue. A closed fan pressed to the heart served as a plea for sympathy in moments of unbearable mental anguish. Observant footmen always knew when the atmosphere was heating up, guided by the rustle of silk and lace fans. The handling of cutlery could also reveal a lot about the inner state of the dinner guests. Clenching a silver fork or knife too tightly indicated carefully concealed anger and tension. A soft tap of the cutlery on the edge of a porcelain plate could be a sign of dissatisfaction with the behavior of a table neighbor. Hostesses often used such subtle sounds to call excessively noisy guests to order. It was a delicate game that required constant attention and the ability to control every movement of one's hands. Women were deprived of freedom of movement, remaining chained to their heavy oak chairs for long hours. Their bodies became instruments for transmitting signals, replacing the open displays of emotion that were forbidden by society. The silence at the table was never truly quiet. It was filled with unspoken pain and constant fear. Behind every perfect posture and graceful movement of the fan was a living soul, locked within the strict confines of propriety. These women performed a true feat of patience every day, keeping up appearances in the face of an indifferent and cruel society. Their silent cries for help were muffled by the heavy curtains of luxurious dining rooms, remaining unheard by their husbands. Appreciate this incredible historical fact and don't forget to like this video to support our channel. Are you ready for the shocking truth about how food became an instrument of torture? The dinner parties of the Age of Splendor were astonishing in their abundance, consisting of 10 or even 15 courses of exquisite dishes. Tables groaned with oysters, truffles, game, and multi-tiered desserts, demonstrating the financial power of the mansion's owners. However, for most women, this gastronomic splendor turned into a real physical and moral test of endurance. They had to balance the need to observe etiquette with the impossibility of eating such a large amount of heavy food. The standards of female beauty at the time required an incredibly thin waist, cinched with a stiff whalebone corset. The corsets compressed the internal organs so much that even a small piece of food caused severe physical pain and discomfort. Women arrived at dinner parties already half-starved, as the process of dressing took several hours and precluded eating. Soups and broths, which were served at the very beginning of a long evening lasting several hours, presented a particular challenge. Consuming hot liquids often caused profuse sweating, which was considered absolutely unacceptable for a true lady in high society. In addition, there was a risk of staining a luxurious dress or ruining intricate makeup with an accidental drop of fatty broth. Therefore, the ladies would only lightly touch the surface of the soup with a spoon, imitating the process of eating with the grace of professional actresses. All these conventions made it impossible to feel full, leaving women hungry amid the culinary splendor. Game dishes with small bones were another test for the elegant manners of aristocratic women at dinner parties. Removing meat from bones with a knife and fork was extremely inconvenient and required surgical precision. Any mistake, the clatter of cutlery or a piece of meat slipping out could attract unwanted attention and become a cause for ridicule. Many ladies preferred not to touch such dishes at all in order to avoid possible embarrassment in front of strict critics. Their lives consisted of endless restrictions, where even satisfying natural hunger was subject to strict rules. If a lady felt faint, she had to leave the dining room discreetly so as not to spoil the evening for the others. Maids in special restrooms brought them round with smelling salts and unfastened hooks. After that, The women were obliged to return to the table with a smile, as if nothing had happened. Every luxurious dish carried with it a hidden threat to women's comfort and physical well-being. Have you noticed how modern beauty standards continue to influence people's eating habits today? Watch the video before moving on to the next chapter to find out how the merciless spotlight exposed women's most intimate secrets. Lighting in mansions during the Gilded Age played a key role in creating the solemn and pompous atmosphere of dinner parties. The transition from soft candlelight to bright gas lighting and then to electric lighting radically changed the rules of social life. New technologies made it possible to illuminate every corner of huge halls, leaving no room for the saving grace of semi-darkness. For women, this technological progress turned out to be a real disaster, depriving them of the opportunity to hide the signs of fatigue and age. The bright light mercilessly highlighted every wrinkle, every unevenness of the skin, and every flaw in carefully applied makeup. Numerous mirrors decorating the walls of the dining rooms reflected this dazzling light many times over, creating the effect of an endless shining corridor. Women were forced to constantly see their reflection, controlling their posture and facial expressions for long hours. This created incredible psychological tension, as they could not forget about their appearance for a second. Any fatigue was instantly reflected in these mirrors, becoming the property of everyone present at the table. Life turned into an endless test of conformity to ideals, which was impossible to pass flawlessly. The bright light also changed the perception of the luxurious fabrics and precious stones that made up women's outfits. Under the rays of powerful lamps, cheap fabrics instantly revealed their origin, depriving impoverished aristocrats of their last chance to save their reputation. Diamonds sparkled even more dazzlingly, emphasizing the gap between the truly wealthy guests and those who were barely making ends meet. Women from ruined families felt humiliated, realizing that their modest jewelry paled in comparison to the splendor of others. It was a visual triumph of wealth, leaving no room for sympathy or understanding of other people's problems. Even the most perfect facial features were distorted under the pressure of this visual inquisition that reigned in the ballrooms. Fatigue from constant sleep deprivation, nervous breakdowns, and strict diets showed up as deep shadows under the eyes. In these shining palaces, it was impossible to hide from the eyes of others or from one's own heavy thoughts. The mansions turned into beautifully lit showcases where human destinies were displayed without a shred of pity. Only the darkness of night brought long-awaited relief from this constant and painful public trial. This is what happens behind closed doors when a luxurious dinner party formally comes to an end. After coffee and cigars were served, there was a moment of strict gender separation prescribed by the immutable rules of Victorian etiquette. The men remained in the dining room or went to the smoking room to enjoy cognac, strong tobacco, and frank conversation. The women, on the other hand, would file into the drawing room, where they would spend several more hours in exclusively female company. It was there, away from the eyes of men, that the most brutal social battles were fought and destinies were decided. This transition from one room to another resembled a procession, where each lady had to observe her place in line. Young girls walked behind older and more prestigious matrons, meekly lowering their eyes and trying not to attract attention. In the living room, the atmosphere changed instantly, becoming colder, more calculating, and saturated with the poison of hidden competition. Smiles became thinner, and compliments took the form of veiled insults that hit their mark. The maid serving tea tried to become completely invisible so as not to fall under the wrath of dissatisfied guests. The older ladies, endowed with the authority of age and status, acted as supreme judges in these improvised tribunals. They sat in deep armchairs, closely observing the behavior of the young debutantes and passing their harsh judgments. In these drawing rooms, alliances were formed and intrigues were spun, aimed at securing advantageous marriages for their daughters. Women agreed on mutual services, exchanged secret information about the financial status of potential suitors, and eliminated competitors. It was a cynical market where human feelings had absolutely no value compared to capital and titles. Love was considered a silly invention from cheap novels, unworthy of the attention of true representatives of the upper class. Girls were sold as beautiful and expensive commodities designed to strengthen the financial position of both families. Tea in the living room was not just a tradition, but a tool of social control and suppression of female individuality. Why do you think women in closed societies often show such cruelty towards each other? Watch the video before the next chapter to find out how older female supervisors controlled the young girls' every move. The institution of chaperones was one of the strictest and most unquestionable pillars of Victorian and late Victorian society. Under no circumstances could a young, unmarried girl be in the company of men or appear in public unaccompanied. The role of chaperones was usually performed by older female relatives, mothers, unmarried aunts, or widowed grandmothers with impeccable reputations. Their task was to protect the girl's honor from the slightest suspicion, as even an unfounded rumor could ruin her future forever. These women took their mission with fanatical seriousness, turning the lives of their charges into a round-the-clock escort. Often, the role of chaperone became the meaning of life for elderly women whose own youth and beauty were long gone. Watching the young debutantes, they sometimes experienced a complex mixture of sincere concern, envy, and a subconscious desire to control someone else's destiny. They tried to compensate for their own unfulfilled ambitions or failed marriages by strictly controlling the lives of their young relatives. They dictated their choice of clothing, manner of behavior, and circle of friends, depriving the girls of the right to have a voice of their own. Their guardianship turned into a mild form of tyranny against which it was impossible and completely pointless to rebel. Servants, standing on the sidelines, often witnessed quiet scenes unfolding between strict supervisors and their submissive wards. Footmen heard harsh whispers in the corridors when a mother scolded her daughter for talking too long with a poor officer. They saw tears in the eyes of young girls whose hopes for love were shattered by the cold calculations of the older generation. The servants understood that this system was cruel, but it was an integral part of the world in which they all had to live. Within these walls, the rules were not set by feelings, but by centuries-old traditions aimed at preserving capital and family ties. The girls watched these scenes in silence, knowing that the same nervous and stressful life awaited them in the future. The system instilled in them a fear of condemnation and a willingness to submit to authority, robbing them of their self-confidence. They became perfect cogs in the machinery of high society, asking no unnecessary questions and demanding nothing for themselves. The gaze of these strict women followed the young girls everywhere, leaving them not a second of freedom or personal space. They lived with the constant feeling that they were being evaluated, weighed, and prepared for sale at a Vanity Fair. This invisible control left deep psychological scars, shaping a character based on fear and suppression of their own desires. The luxury of the mansions could not compensate for the feeling of being caged that accompanied the aristocratic women throughout their youth. And even after they married, they often transferred this pattern of behavior to their own daughters, closing the vicious circle. Dinner parties often served as informal business venues, where the most important contracts were concluded to the clink of crystal glasses. Behind the impeccable service and exquisite dishes lay the harsh reality of the marriage market, where young women were treated as bargaining chips. Impoverished aristocratic families desperately needed an infusion of fresh capital from wealthy industrialists and railroad magnates. In turn, the nouveau riche craved access to high society and the ancient titles held by old families. Marriages of convenience became the ideal solution for both sides, satisfying ambitions and saving fortunes from complete ruin. Girls were prepared for this mission from early childhood, instilling in them ideas of duty to their family and lineage. They were taught French, piano, and the art of embroidery, not for their own pleasure, but to increase their market value. They were supposed to become the perfect adornments for their future husbands' homes, demonstrating refinement and excellent manners. There was no question of personal affection or love. These concepts were considered the preserve of the lower classes and characters in cheap novels. Sacrificing one's youth on the altar of family well-being was considered the highest virtue and the absolute norm. Often, the age difference between the groom and bride was 20 or even 30 years. Young beauties were married off to aging tycoons whose faces were lined with wrinkles and whose characters had been corrupted by years of struggle for power. Marriages of convenience often led to deep depression, which in that era was called a fashionable disease, melancholy. Ladies locked themselves in their rooms, refused food, and spent hours looking out the window at the well-kept gardens of their estates. Every spoonful of soup eaten at these dinner parties had its price, expressed in broken female destinies. Behind the splendor of the table setting and exquisite dishes lay tragedies that were not to be spoken of aloud in decent society. These cold commercial transactions, dressed up as beautiful wedding ceremonies, were a real curse for the women of the Gilded Age. They lived in houses full of gold and antiques, but their hearts remained empty and cold until the end of their days. Only the walls of these ancient mansions kept the memory of quietly shed tears and unfulfilled hopes. While the fates of vast fortunes were being decided in the grand halls, a parallel life was bustling on the lower floors of the mansions. The servants were a complex hierarchical mechanism, working with the precision of Swiss watches and invisible to their masters. The butler, housekeeper, cooks, footmen, and maids formed their own social network, where the most accurate and dangerous information circulated. Any secret whispered in a bedroom or living room inevitably became the property of those who cleaned the fireplaces and served morning tea. The mansion was a living organism in which nothing could hide from the hundreds of attentive eyes and ears of the service staff. The butler was the undisputed king of this underground empire, wielding enormous power over both the servants and the secrets of his masters. He personally controlled access to the house, assigned duties, and ensured the flawless execution of dinner party rituals. He kept lists of guests, their wine preferences, their mistresses, and the size of their secret debts in his memory. The butler was the man who saw his masters at their most vulnerable moments, but his face always remained stony and respectful. This awareness made him the most dangerous and at the same time the most indispensable person in any wealthy household. The network of servants was not limited to the walls of a single mansion. It entangled the entire city in a complex web of connections. Coachmen waiting for their masters near the entrances shared rumors with footmen from other houses, passing on news of scandals and bankruptcies. Maids met at markets or during Sunday services, exchanging bits of information about the lives of their mistresses. Thanks to this invisible information network, a person's reputation could be destroyed among servants much faster than among aristocrats. They knew who paid their bills on time and who was on the verge of bankruptcy, hiding behind lavish facades. Despite their awareness, servants were bound by strict rules of subordination and fear of losing their jobs. Dismissal without a letter of recommendation meant hunger and poverty for them, so they guarded their master's secrets like the apple of their eye. The true history of the Gilded Age is written not only in official documents, but also in the memories of this invisible army of servants. They were silent witnesses to an era, knowing every crack in the perfect facade of Victorian prosperity. Without their hard daily labor, this society could not have survived a single day, mired in chaos. Through their eyes, we can see the true price of wealth and the human suffering that hid behind the shiny front doors. They knew all the secrets, but they took them with them, leaving us only with guesses about what really happened in those grand halls. Despite the all-consuming pressure of society and the strict rules of etiquette, the female spirit could not always be completely broken. Behind the facade of obedience and polite smiles, there was often a quiet, subtle resistance that allowed women to preserve what remained of their individuality. They found microscopic loopholes in the strict rules, creating their own space of freedom within the golden cage. This resistance was not expressed in open rebellions or loud scandals, which would only have led to social suicide. It was a daily, persistent struggle for the right to be a living person, not just a beautiful decoration in someone else's house. Reading became one of the main ways for many aristocratic women of that time to escape harsh reality. In the silence of their boudoir, they immersed themselves in worlds where women had power, freedom of choice, and the right to love. Books, often hidden under pillows or among piles of laundry, gave them the emotional nourishment they were deprived of in life. They read novels, philosophy, and poetry, expanding their horizons far beyond the walls of their luxurious mansions. This secret self-education helped them maintain clarity of mind and not go mad from the endless series of empty social obligations. Charity, encouraged by society as a suitable occupation for ladies, was often used by them to gain real influence. By running fundraising committees, they acquired skills in financial planning, event organization, and people management. Gradually, very slowly, this quiet resistance began to change the atmosphere, within the rigid social structures of the late Victorian era. Mothers who had experienced the full brunt of marriages of convenience sometimes tried to protect their daughters from a similar fate. They chose suitors more carefully, trying to take into account at least a minimum of sympathy between the young people. Although the rules remained strict, microscopic cracks began to appear in them, through which the light of new ideas shone. It was a long and painful process of evolution of female self-awareness, paid for with the tears of many generations. The story of these women is a reminder that true freedom begins within a person, in their thoughts and feelings. No amount of wealth, titles, or luxurious interiors can replace the right to control one's own destiny. The memory of them should serve as a lesson to us about the value of sincerity, equality, and the opportunity to be ourselves. As we conclude our story about the secrets of dining tables, we pay tribute to their invisible but important resistance. Their voices, long drowned out by the clinking of crystal, can finally be heard and understood by us today. We have revealed only a small part of the secrets kept by the old mansions of the Gilded Age. The experiences of the women of that time are a harsh lesson in the importance of valuing freedom, sincerity, and simple human feelings, which seem like an unattainable treasure in those golden cages. Write in the comments what other historical topics and mysteries of past eras you would like to see in our next videos. Your opinion is very important to us, and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on new in-depth explorations of the invisible pages of history.